Anything on the less legal paperwork end that you wanted to discuss?
I was wondering how I'm using an TMS. I did a lot of research and I chose Ascend TMS because they have a lot of features built in, accounting and shipper packet, all that stuff. So I was really impressed by that, and it's not bad. It's $80 a month for a single user, so that's certainly within our budget. But I'm wondering how we send. What's the best way to send packets, carrier packets, and shipper packets to them for their signatures, and then have them sent back to us? Should we use like a digital signature website, or use Adobe to create the stuff and have forms maybe for them to fill it in? I don't know how the best way to do that is.
Well, I'm a firm believer, keep it simple. I mean, now, digital signatures are great sometimes, and I can see where that'd be a benefit when you're dealing with owner operators. One person, they're on they own one truck, they're the driver, they're on the road. So having the ability and just Adobe for their little premium service, which I think is only about 29 bucks a month, or maybe even less, could be less than that annual charge, then you can convert a Word to PDF, and then you can create signature sections and places to initial and whatever. So for someone like that, a service like that could be beneficial. They're on the road. You need to get a confirmation out to them. You need to get a package out to them. You need to get them to sign a broker carrier agreement. Okay, I'm going to email you this agreement. You don't have to print it out. You don't have to physically sign it. There'll be places you just click on a button and it says you accept digital signatures, and boom, they can do it like that. So regular old Adobe, their premium service that allows you to create fields like in places where they would normally be signing and then scanning and sending back to you. So that's something you can do. For years, I mean, when I was in business, I didn't use fancy stuff. I created Word documents. When I sent them out, I converted them to PDF, locked it so that, people couldn't change the wording around. And then, if it wasn't urgent, they're going to print them out when they're going to print them out, review them, sign, scan them, email them back, or fax them back, whatever. So I don't know that it's super critical. I mean, I can see where if you've got the online digital signature capability in certain instances, that's going to be helpful, especially again for those owner operators on the road. But initially, you could just, again, create everything in Word, convert it to PDF, email it, and at their, if it's not time sensitive, they print it out, they sign, they date where they need to, and then they're just going to scan it and send it back to you, what you need a copy of.
All right.
Yeah. Good question, though. What else does that TMS system do for you?
It's
So
really,
is that tracking all your contacts, and that where we talked about, like on a Monday, you know who you're going to call today, or who you should be calling today. Who said they were going to need a load today, tomorrow, the next day. So this is stuff you can input in there so that on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, you hit a button or run a report, and who do I need to contact today? And based on the notes you put in, or the little, follow up on this date, or next time you're going to need a load is on this date, this truck or whatever, and then all that can pop up for you.
it doesn't have a contact manager per se. It has all the information for packages and insurance, and it tracks the loads. It has real-time tracking and all that stuff.
Okay, that's your logistics management.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, let me encourage you.
Yeah.
Let me encourage you to look at, if you haven't already signed a long-term agreement or paid for,
No, I haven't.
Yeah, let me encourage you to look for logistics management software contact at 80 bucks a month. I'm thinking you might be able to get something that not only prints out the confirmations, sends them out directly from the system, prints out an invoice after a load's delivered, allows you to input information and post directly to a load board. I'm assuming if it's logistics management, you have the ability to do that. But it's really convenient if you have the contact management built in with your logistics management. So it's not just that. In fact, I'm from a sales standpoint, marketing and staying organized, I'm thinking that's even more important.
Right.
But I think for 80 bucks a month or not too much more, you can have systems that do both. Handle your logistics paperwork, let you interact with load boards, let you generate confirmations to go out to your carriers, and then send invoices to your shipper once you have proof of delivery, all through that system. But also within that same system, because there's contact, you're putting your shippers in, you're putting your carriers in, there's contact information there, I assume, name of the company,
Right.
location, phone number, contact person, email address. So the next step is, okay, being able to make a note and get a report or a blip reminder, messaging for today, don't forget to call Joe at XYZ trucking, because he's supposed to have 2 trucks that need loads in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that kind of stuff. So let me encourage you to do a little more research, because what you like about that program you have now, you could probably find with other programs that give you even more functionality, especially that contact management software aspect of it. Because that's, once you get busy, man, it's critical. Keeping you organized. It'd be nice when you're inputting all that other information, you could just have a little space for, when's the next time to follow up, contact on Tuesday, August the 6th, and Tuesday morning pops up. And so you don't forget it. You don't have it on a little sticky note on the wall. You don't have it in a pile of 3-inch, thick pile of paperwork for follow-up, that kind of stuff. So.
Excuse me, Tony, do you have a suggestion as to what system might have all of that together that would be helpful?
I don't, because I'm not working with a particular system right now. I can tell you, though, there are numerous ones. So go, and I'm thinking some of the, the big ones that the same ones that have logistics software, and again, whatever you're using, Robert, might have an option for that within it. So you might check if you like what you have, maybe for an extra 20 bucks a month, 15 bucks a month, but DAT probably has possibly one set up there. But yeah, I would just, you query logistics management systems with contact management capability, Google that or something. And you're probably going to have several that pop up. Logistics and contact management software. So you want the combination, the logistics end and the contact management.
Sounds good.
Yeah. What else? What else, if anything,
Thank you.
can I help with? You're welcome, Brenda. And by the way, Robert, I meant to ask it. You said liftoff date or target date. What is your target date for being
Right
active?
now, we're waiting for our broker authority.
Okay.
So we're not sure exactly how long that's going to take, or what do you think the time frame is?
Used to take an average of about 3 weeks from the point you applied and sent everything in. It has to be posted and let everybody know that you've applied. Again, about a week or something, 7 days, something like that, may have changed. So when did you officially submit the application with all of your documentation, proof of insurance?
They would have done that today, as I sent that to them on Friday. Yeah, so they would have sent it.
It's going to be approximately 3 weeks, approximately.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at.
Okay, all right. So you got a little bit of time. So
a little bit, not
the
much.
clock is ticking. Clock is ticking.
Yeah,
so you want to get all that other stuff together.
Yeah. I did have a question on insurances. We want to cover ourselves. So in case there was an accident that the truck got in, they couldn't sue us. I did get my own, as a broker agent, I did get my own corporation and my own tax identification number, so that everything is paid to the corporation and not to me personally. And that was suggested as another level of security for my own assets. What kind of insurances should I carry to cover myself. And there were several suggestions, workers' comp and liability, errors and omissions, I think is a very important one. Contingent cargo and contingent auto insurance. Do you agree that those are important?
Okay, you got a lot of things there. Workers' comp, some states require it no matter what. Most states, though, it doesn't kick in until there's a certain number of employees
Okay,
involved. So I don't know what the state of Illinois requires. Some shippers want to see proof of workers' comp. We have,
Okay.
and that's another form, by the way, that I usually include in both shipper and carrier package. So we'll have a workers' comp not required letter. I forget exactly what we call it, but one that says in the state of Illinois, unless you have X number of employees, that a workers' comp exempt letter. So if your brokerage, your company, based on you don't meet the minimum number of employees, or because it's an S corp, or because it's whatever, you're exempt, then you have a letter that's part of your package, because many, if not most shippers, want to see that you've got work comp in case one of your employees, because they're dealing with trucking companies. So if a trucking company slips and falls while unloading, a trucker slips and falls while unloading a shipment at their warehouse, they want to know that you've got workers' comp to cover that, and they're not going to try and sue the shipper, them. So many shippers, as part of their package, part of their requirement is you got to show you've got proof. A lot of times they don't differentiate between truckers and brokers.
Okay.
Many times the package they send you as a broker is the same thing they send to a trucking company. And one of the things that may be in there is you showing proof of workers' comp. So one of the things we'll oftentimes include or suggest you include is a workers' comp exempt letter, meaning you're not required. And as a broker, they're not your employees. You don't have any employees typically. Now, if it ever gets to the point where it's a deterrent because you got some shippers saying no work comp and we're not going to do business with you. We live in a litigious society these days. Everybody's trying to sue everybody else. Go to one of the payroll services. It's going to cost you maybe $100 a month, maybe less. Set up yourself the lone employee of your brokerage company. And where if you went directly to an insurance company, the minimum cost, if you can get it, and some insurance companies won't insure you for work comp, but if you can get it, it's going to be very expensive. But if you go through a payroll company like ADP or Paychex, and I've used both of those. Right now I'm using Paychex for my businesses. Prior to that, I was using ADP, and both of those payroll companies will offer workers' comp for any of the companies that use their payroll service. So in addition to the payroll, and it's a percentage of the payroll. So if it's just you on payroll, your workers' comp insurance by paycheck, pay yourself weekly, bi-weekly. Even I've got one small little company I have that I just pay myself once a month, $100 a month. But I mean, my workers' comp insurance for me and my wife through one of our companies, it's like $20 a month, $15 a month. Whereas if I tried to get it directly from an insurance company, if I could, usually they have huge minimums. So you're going to be paying like several $100s a month if you can get it, because of the minimum premium that they look for. So most of the time you won't even be able to get it. So that's one way to get around work comp. I'd start with exempt letter. If that doesn't work, you may want to look into a payroll service like ADP or Paycheck that offers workers' comp for what you're doing. And as a broker, you're administrative, you don't have much risk. You specifically aren't going to be slipping and falling in a warehouse, unloading stuff. So you have minimal risk. The thing though, and then you don't have to worry about the minimums, because ADP or Paychex, they've kind of bundled it in. They've got thousands and thousands of people going through their service. So that's how you can get around that. General liability is always a good thing. it protects against getting sued for whatever. Professional liability, that E&O insurance. I mean, I'm in some of my government contracts, I'm required to have professional liability. One of the contracts I have with one government agency, if I want their business, I got to show I've got professional liability insurance, errors and omissions. You told us we had to do this, and that's what we did, and 10 people died because that wasn't how they were supposed to do it. Most places don't require that, though. Starting out, if you want to keep your costs down, and I can tell you, between my general liability, my commercial auto, and my professional liability, those insurances, and I'm not running a trucking company anymore, but my insurance as a sitting behind a desk person, or I go out and I actually do train live for some of my businesses now also, but my insurance is at least doubled, and in some cases almost tripled in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Insurance is crazy. Now I'm in Florida. I don't know if that's better or worse than
Wow.
Illinois. But in general, insurance is expensive. So I wouldn't, if it's not a requirement,
Yeah.
most people aren't going to sue you for professional liability, or much more. The thing that as a broker, you're almost going to have is contingent cargo liability. Not your trucks. You're getting proof of cargo insurance, but in some cases, all of a sudden there's a very delicate, very expensive load. They had $100,000 worth of coverage, and the load on the truck is 150,000. Trucking company only covers 100 of it. Their insurance company covers that. You have contingent cargo liability, so anything that the trucking company didn't cover, you've got that backup, which only kicks in if somebody else's insurance doesn't cover everything, or it was fine, but their insurance dropped them the day before they took the load and nobody really knew about it. You probably have a letter in the mail and you're not going to get it till next week or whatever. But, they took a load, driver had an accident, or the refrigeration unit went out and all the ice cream melted, so you got a 40, 50, $60,000 claim. Cargo, the trucking company didn't have insurance to cover it. Shipper doesn't want to have to cover it. So then your contingent cargo liability kicks in. So you almost have to have that. So that's what I would be most concerned about starting out brand new, because most shippers are going to require that. Even though it's not a licensing requirement as a broker, contingent cargo liability is, from a practical standpoint, almost a necessity that most shippers will require that. Other stuff, kind of optional. Again, some places want to see it because they're going to treat you almost like anything they require of a trucking company. Some places require the same thing of a broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we get a certain amount of contingent cargo insurance?
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. Your shippers are going to tell you. What I would do is I would get quotes from insurance agent. I would have, things lined up. Look at what the current requirements are for most trucking companies for their liability insurance. I would start out, a contingent cargo insurance, like $100,000 typically would cover most things. So you might start out getting quotes for that. And last I checked, that most shippers don't require more than that, but again, some might. So I would get quotes for like $100,000 in contingent cargo liability insurance. And that'll generally cover you for most shippers. Some, depending on the types of loads they're shipping, might require more. But most, that would typically cover most shipments.
And the contingent auto insurance, you don't think is necessary?
Yeah, you don't own any trucks as a broker.
Right.
There's not a situation, even in a crash, so you don't have to worry about, I would say there's no situation where I've heard of a broker having to have commercial auto coverage. General liability, let's say trucking company, they had an accident, driver negligent, killed 3 people.
Hmm.
Some general liability, just in case, commercial
Right.
liability, we're not concerned about that kind of stuff. But, they found out that your brokerage company was involved in transactions, they may sue anybody they can find
Sure.
who was in
Yeah.
any way related. Has nothing to do with commercial auto. That's not going to cover you. It's the general liability, that would
Okay.
cover you. So contingent cargo, number 1 on the list of insurance. And I would say workers' comp might be number 2 if you can't get away with a exempt letter because you're not really required. And then number 3 on that would be general liability, which I would not worry about until you had to do it.
Okay.
Because some places just say, we want to see $100,000 in cargo liability or contingent cargo liability if you're a broker, and $1 million in general liability, just to cover almost anything. And that may be their standard package. You want to be a vendor for us? This is what it takes. And it's involved in shipping, boom, work comp, contingent cargo liability insurance, or liability or cargo liability insurance if you're the trucker, and then general liability. And they got standard stuff, $1 million for general liability, 100,000 for cargo insurance, and then proof of workers' comp. So anybody that slips and falls and hurts themselves in one of our facilities, that's going to cover, you're going to cover them, or work comp's going to cover them, and not us.
Okay.
So